Hi, and welcome to the When Women Fly podcast. Each episode, I have poignant conversations with women who fly, run, surf, ski, climb, or otherwise soar, and possess a passion for life that is infectious. These are honest and insightful conversations about dreams and reinvention, often in the face of uncertainty, doubt, or other impediments. We talk about busting paradigms, grit, working hard, and playing hard, all while building a community around the empowering metaphor of flight. I am your host, Sylvia Winter, a pilot, runner, mother, skier, list maker, and apparently podcaster. I believe that when we share our stories, own our fears, and dismantle our perceived limitations, the possibilities are boundless. Whether you're pursuing your passion or simply love the idea of possibility and wonder, this podcast is for you. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let's get started. Have you ever had an idea for something that you wish existed? Well, my guest today is an entrepreneur, amongst other things. And when she got her pilot's license and wanted an aviation watch, a woman's aviation watch, it bugged her enough that it didn't exist that she decided to make it. And the world's first female adventure watch company was born. My guest today is Abingdon Mullin, a pilot and entrepreneur. And she's not someone who sits around waiting for things to happen. Abingdon is the founder and CEO of a watch company geared towards adventurous women called the Abingdon Co. She has a rush of energy. Born in England and raised in Burbank, California, her work revolves around women empowerment and opportunities for females. All of her businesses came about as a result of her getting her pilot's license in 2006. Although the time of COVID has reduced her travel, she travels as a passion and a habit born of curiosity and a thirst to have different experiences. Among her other talents, Abingdon has reality TV show appearances too. She's appeared on Discovery Channel's Flying Wild Alaska Season 3 and appeared on ABC's Shark Tank. She was also the first woman to land in the Shanghai Hangzhou International Airport in a single-engine propeller. With a knack for video and film, she has used the COVID period to launch a YouTube marketing campaign to increase reach and highlight some pretty rad women, emblematic of her lifestyle brand, The Watches. Each episode focuses on shining the light into the lives of women who are perhaps out of the mainstream, either professionally or recreationally, in fields that are typically male-dominated. Abingdon is spirited and inspiring. Enjoy the conversation. Abingdon, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Could you introduce yourself in the way that you like to be introduced?
I'm pretty simple. Just Abingdon is fine. It's kind of a tough one for people. Nobody's really ever heard of that name before, but it is the name my parents gave me, and that's what I like to be called.
And how do you define yourself professionally?
Multifaceted would probably be the best way to describe myself professionally. I am very analytical and rational with my flying. Everything is very, very technical and measured. And then with my business, I have a creative outlet as well in designing watches. And then also with the foundation, the nonprofit that I'm president of, I have a wonderful sense of volunteership and mentorship and helping to build up our youth. So I would definitely say multifaceted.
Hmm. So pilot, entrepreneur, and you manage a foundation.
And sleep sometimes.
Sleep, yeah, that self-care.
Yeah, exactly.
And where were you born and raised, and what impact did that have on what you are now?
So I was born in England in Leeds, which is up in the north. And I come from a Mexican mother and a British father. So a very multicultural upbringing. Stayed between both England and Southern California, where my mother's family was for most of my childhood. I mean, it's influenced everything. My mother, who never graduated high school, ended up getting her GED, working as a secretary for Al Gore, marched on Washington, has been an entrepreneur herself, and now now retired, but when she retired, she was writing contracts as one of the lead contract administrators for Disney and Universal. I mean, she made her path. And coming from a place where she was not encouraged to get an education and not encouraged to be self empowered, she was really encouraged to marry and have babies and stay in the kitchen. I mean, that was
Mm,
literally what her father told her when she told him that Stanford had offered her a free ride.
mm,
And so, because she didn't have any value on what Stanford was offering her, she decided, well, high school really isn't important, and neither is a college education. So, realizing that mistake, she made sure that she raised me to
mm,
believe in myself and to believe that an education is important and that also you look out for yourself.
mm.
And then my father on the other side of the spectrum, and they really are two sides of a coin. He's Merlin from Sword in the Stone. He is one of the wisest, savant, quirky, British humor type guys that he looks like the ex Beatle, the Beatle that never had a musical bone in his body, but he always had that mop top and that mustache and those glasses, and he was always reading. And he was working on his master's in Washington D.C. at Georgetown University when he met my mom. So he really gave me the financial acumen, the academic acumen, the reliance on data. And when he retired, he was an economic advisor for the city of Long Beach. So he was running the entire economy of the city and helping put in development plans. So he's very much of a forward thinker, a long term thinker.
Hmm.
Between the two of them, I am a split down the middle of both of those two. And I thank both of them for it.
Ah, it's so interesting. Did you have expectations for you that you either struggled with or bolstered you?
I've always tried to not have expectations for anything, but I do set goals.
Mhm,
And one of the sayings that my mom always taught me was if you shoot for the mountains, you'll hit the top of a building. But if you shoot for the moon, then you'll hit the mountain. And so that's something that whenever I put my energy into anything, really, I'm always shooting for the moon, if not further.
mhm,
And so to put expectations, I think sometimes puts unnecessary pressure on either the people around you or on yourself. But to set goals, it's more of a challenge. It's more of almost like a game. Like you want to win the game, so to speak.
mhm,
And that I think it's such a small shift in the way you think about approaching things, but you have to make it engaging for yourself. And the way I'm engaged by what I set for myself is by setting goals.
mhm. So it sounds like a lot of internal motivation and there wasn't external motivation, or if there was, it doesn't seem like it affected you.
No, yeah, no, I definitely say I'm much more motivated internally. And you have to be. I mean, as an entrepreneur,
Yeah,
you wake up unemployed every day because if you're doing it right, then your staff gets paid first, you get paid last. And it is always your customers that write your paychecks.
yeah.
So if you don't go into every day thinking that, then you're doing something wrong.
Mm. Tell us about becoming a pilot and how flying has become a passion for you.
So people love this story, and I love telling it because it's so true. But I really am pretty simple because when I was 14, I found out about flying from free food. People ask, how did you find out about flying? I was like, oh, it was free food offered at my high school. And my high school, which was John Burroughs in Burbank, California, they had these things. The first Wednesday of every month was Career Wednesday. And you went to the Career Center during lunchtime and you went for the food, honestly. And then somebody would talk about what they did for a living. So I always knew that that's where I needed to be on the first Wednesday of every month because I got my
Hmm,
free pizza or my free Subway or whatever it was. And on this particular Wednesday, I was 14. I was early. I'm usually always early to everything. And I was the only girl in there. So the presenters hadn't even come up yet. So I was kind of curious, is it construction? Is it something, I don't know, oriented towards guys? And in walk two pilots. Well, they started talking about the love of flying and the adventure of the job. There's so many different types of flying you can do from traffic watch in the morning in the helicopters to flying relief aid in underdeveloped countries to chauffeuring around celebrities and getting $1,000 tips. And then also, yes, there are the airlines and those jobs as well. And then you even have the military side and you've got the instruction side where you could be a flight instructor. And I mean, there's so many different types of flying that people don't really think about. And I was hooked. And of course, my first flight, I was a baby. I still had my passport and I was only 3 months old or something. So I kind of had grown up flying and traveling. And I thought, well, if I can get paid to travel, that's kind of like stealing, is what it feels like.
Huh.
So that night I went home and said, Mom, I want to be a pilot. And she's like, that's nice, pass the P's. And, you're 14, so you have a different idea of what you want to be every week. So, but that was the one that stuck with me.
Mm.
And I love flying. I've not left the airport since my first flight.
Wow. So there's the piloting prong, and then there's the entrepreneurial prong. Tell us about your company and how that came to be.
Well, it starts way before I started a company, which was in 2006. I was that Girl Scout that had to outsell the other Girl Scouts, like a super competitive. And I did door to door sales in college as well to help me pay for college. And I did that for 3 summers. So that entrepreneurial spirit was already building in me.
Mhm.
And when I decided on starting the Abingdon Watch Company, I was just finishing my private pilot rating. So I started private pilot training in August of 2006. And I got my rating 30, was it was 36 days later or something. I got it in about a month. And I wanted to gift myself a pilot's watch for like a graduation gift to myself. And 2006, I was 21, 22, started looking online and seeing that there was really nothing. And I was a part of a group of female pilots called the 99s. And I went and asked them at one of our meetings, like, oh, I want to get a pilot's watch. Do you guys know of anything? And they're like, we're only 6% of the market. Nobody's going to make anything for us. I gave up looking years ago. And I was like, what? So that really was kind of devastating. I didn't really think about it. It was in the back of my head. And I, from time to time would do a look to see if I could find something online, but I just kind of was given up like they had. And then it was the 99's Christmas dinner that December. So about 2, 3 months later. And we were all talking about what we wanted for Christmas. And one of the women said, I've always wanted a pilot's watch that was made for me. And that's what I would want Santa to give me.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, I did too. So I felt her frustration and I thought to myself, and it was there at that dinner that I decided, you know what, I'm going to do this. And I actually thought of just making one for me and maybe just her and, just a couple friends.
Mhm.
But my boyfriend at the time said, you are always looking for some type of side hustle or new business or something. If you already know that the demand is there, why don't you create 500 instead of five? So I really give him credit for that. He planted that seed pretty hard.
Mm.
And I just started Googling. I started looking up watch manufacturers. I started looking up what the best places were to manufacture watches. Switzerland, of course, being the top in the world, Japan being a very close second, Germany being a very close third, and started building a business. I decided, because, like I said, goals, right? It's all
Mhm.
about setting the goal. December, I decided that's what I was going to do, was start a watch company that made pilots watches for women. And I was going to launch it on my birthday, November 3rd of the following year. So 11 months.
Wow.
So that was a lofty goal.
Yeah.
And at 22 years old, I had no idea how to start a company. I had no idea how to contact manufacturers and place, multi
Mhm.
5-figure deposits to build a first minimum order quantity, which in the watch world is 500 watches. So I had to make 500 watches as my first order and figure out where those 500 customers were.
Wow.
And I think about 2 months before I launched the company, I had my first check
Wow.
from my first customer. And I still have a copy of that check
So you launched in actually in November of that following year?
on my birthday.
Wow. How did you envision developing, the first startup period?
Well, this was November 2007.
Mm,
So the economy was fantastic. But think about what happened just a few months later
until it wasn't.
until it wasn't. So the beauty about starting a business in a recession is you are already scraping and you're already really scrappy. I couldn't afford a printer, so I just made sure that I signed every document on a PDF, like on an online or on a computer, because I couldn't afford to print anything.
Mhm.
So all of those types of things, setting up the structures to where receipts were being emailed, packing slips were being printed like on the backside of the shipping label, stuff like that, just to save things
Really lean.
really lean.
Yeah.
That was really what kind of set the foundation for the company. And today, I mean, the company is an incredibly well-oiled machine in that we don't use paper. Everything is searchable digitally. We keep a track record. And some of our customers, I mean, from 2007, 2008, when we were just starting, we still service their watches. We have complete histories on all of their what they've done, how many times they've gotten a battery change. I mean, you name it, what shows we've seen them at,
Mhm.
because we have that digital footprint that we built from the beginning. We didn't have to do what a lot of businesses did, where they were transitioning from paper files to scanning digital and storing them online. We already did that from the beginning. So
And how let's just dig into actually the company itself and making watches. So, first, what is the elevator pitch for your business?
we make adventurous watches for adventurous women.
Love it. And how has that evolved in the last, what has it been, 13 years?
14.
Oh,
Yeah, we're going into our 14th. You're right. We're finishing up our 13th. How has it evolved? Well, we started as the first aviation watch for women.
yep.
And now we're into the dive industry, we're into the automotive industry, the tactical industry. We're being sold on the exchanges at the military bases. So the idea of the company is to empower women. And we have done that by reaching more industries that women are minorities of and that they don't have products that are made for them all the time.
Mhm.
So, and the wonderful thing I loved when we introduced our first dive watch in 2014, because so many of our aviation customers went and took up diving
Hmm.
because we came up with this dive watch and they liked the watch. They bought the watch and they decided, yeah, I'm going to go get my dive cert now.
So you saw the lifestyle brand
Mhm.
actually play out.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. And tell us more about the watch itself. So and maybe describe 1 or 2 of your more popular ones and what a customer has when they buy an Abington watch.
Sure. All you have to think about really, it's like a Michael Kors meets a Swiss Army knife. So, everybody loves the beauty and the style and fashion of a Michael Kors watch, but they're not always built with the strongest materials. And it's more of a fashion accessory as opposed to a tool.
Mhm.
So, I like the watch that I'm wearing today. This is my favorite watch. It's the Jackie and Seaplane Green, which is one of our original styles. And I've worn this every day for basically the last 14 years. This is one of the original prototypes. So the crystals are all sapphire. We don't use any mineral crystals, meaning that they're basically scratch proof.
Mhm.
The only time that you're really going to find a crystal, which is the glass on top, get scratched or gouged or broken. I've heard of, I can recall three watches that have had this happen. One it was bit by a koala, the other, it was in a car crash, and the other one was in a helicopter crash.
Wow.
So, and everybody survived. Everybody was, well, at least the wearer. In the helicopter crash, there were a few fatalities, but our customer, she actually did survive, and she wears her watch every day as a reminder
Wow.
how durable and what happened on that day for her. But that's the idea: is these are indestructible.
Mm.
So the metals, the movements are all metal. Everything glows. So you're never going to find an Abingdon watch that won't glow in the dark. What else? They're shock absorbing. There's one other thing I was going to mention. And every single watch will go down 165 feet, water resistance. So that's standard across the board. There's no watch that just looks pretty. It does something else.
And what about the branding and naming of the different watches?
I love branding and naming the different watches because it's actually not me that does it. We build test pilot groups where we grab a select group of customers who we kind of know what they do. And because we follow all of our customers on social media, they follow us, we follow them. And so we get to see our customers in action all the time. And so, for example, there's a new tactical watch that is being built. I'm not really kind of giving away secrets, but I kind of am giving away secrets right now. So, but with this new tactical watch, it's going to be built for the armed forces, for the like police and fire departments, the women that work in those industries, also for like the CIA, FBI, the military. So this watch really has to have certain features. It can't have smartwatch technology in it. If you're on a base in another part of the world, you're not allowed to have smartwatches. So
Mhm.
there's certain things that we had to find out about. How do we build the best tactical watch for the women that are in these fields?
Mm.
So what we did is we reached out to eight, I think it was 8 or 9 women. We call them pilot test groups because that's basically what they are. No pun intended on the word pilot, but a pilot test group. And one of the women in this group actually can't even tell us what she does for a living.
Hmm.
So that's pretty cool. But when we build the prototypes, we send it to them. They give us feedback. They are the ones that design it, and they're the ones that name it.
Hmm.
So one of our questions is, if you were to name this watch, what would you name it and why? And we all discuss. And people bring forward their ideas. It's a fun process.
Hmm. And what are some examples?
For the tactical watch, I won't say anything, but I will tell you that the Catherine style watch was originally named Melissa.
Oh.
And that name was changed after feedback from the group. And there is one person out there in the world, and if you're listening to this, high five to you. Her name is Melissa, and she bought the Melissa prototype at one of our trade shows that we were at. So she's the only person in the world that has, it's a Catherine watch, but it has a dial and a case back that has the name Melissa on it.
Oh, that's really funny. And your some of your most popular watches are named Amelia, and you said Jackie.
Mhm.
So do they all take after, maybe not in the Melissa case that we don't really know who she is, but do they all take after women of historical?
They do not. We don't name our watches after anybody famous. Really, it's always one of the questions at the end of the design process where we look at the watch and look at the face and look at the band and just kind of see what the watch has become. And then say, okay, what does it look like?
Hmm.
Have you ever met somebody where you could never remember their name because in your mind, they look like somebody completely different?
Yeah.
And you're just like, your name doesn't fit.
I mean, it's kinda like naming a baby.
It is, but our baby is full grown by the time we name it. We've already designed it.
I love the idea that you didn't settle for the fact that this product didn't exist, right? An aviation watch for women, and that you weren't discouraged that only 6% of pilots are women, and there are not that many pilots in the world, so your market wasn't huge, but regardless of that, you plunged into this, and in doing that, created a lifestyle brand that had some impact, maybe a lot, and probably will a lot more in women's lives, feeling like there are objects for them to support their jobs and their passions. Do you have any advice for those of us who do things, whether it's flying or surfing or mountain climbing or skiing, where we just don't find that thing, that product that we wish we had? Maybe not distinctly because we're a woman and there's only a men's version, but it doesn't exist and it doesn't seem like there's a market for it. Because I bet there are a lot of listeners that have done their sport enough that there is a thing or 2 or 5 that they just wish they had, and they may not have either the entrepreneurial energy or just even believe that it could happen, know how to do it. So, I thought you would be a great person to ask.
Buy a 3D printer. Oh my gosh. I mean, how wonderful is technology that it is at our fingertips right now that we could build that widget, no matter what it was, with just a pen to paper.
Hmm.
I mean, That is probably my biggest piece of advice is right now accessibility is so easy. When I was starting this out, I was and I've told them time and time again, Alibaba is the website that I use to try and source manufacturers. And basically, it was just from a Google search of how do I manufacture a watch? That was literally the Google search. And it came up with Alibaba.com. And that in itself is a Google, but it's a Google for manufacturers. So at the time in 2006, it was two search boxes. You typed in what you wanted to get made and then what country you wanted it to be made in. And when I put in watches in Switzerland, 30,000 entries showed up. When I put in watches in the US, unfortunately, like nothing showed up. But you can find, if I could find that type of accessibility as a 21-year-old, 22-year-old back then, imagine what you can do now.
Mhm.
And with a 3D printer that you can basically buy on Amazon for a decent one for just a couple $100, you can print in alloys now. You can print in metals, in plastics, in different materials. It's incredible what you can do with a CNC machine.
Mm.
So if there's an idea that you have and you want to just see it, if you don't have one of those printers, you can go buy one, or but not buy one. You can go borrow one, or go to like a hobby store. And most of those guys, if I need something printed, I know three hobby stores here in Vegas that I'll just go and I'm kind of a drone geek, so I do like to play with the drones in the hobby stores. So they all have 3D printers, and I'll just go in and say, "Hey, I've got this idea. Can you CAD this up for me, and we can print this out." And they love it because they want to use their machine all the time. They're always creating little things.
Mhm.
So I mean, if you just want to see it made, there it is. If you want to actually go for a production run, you've got great websites to do that on. If you really think it's like the next big thing that you're kind of like, oh well, I don't want people copying it and all of that, well then you can have this manufacturer make this part and that manufacturer make that part, and then you put it together. So there's ways of protecting yourself as well.
Mhm.
You've got a lot of roads to the top of that mountain, but the first thing to do is just make one, try it, see what it's like. It's fun.
And with the manufacturing bit, you did your research and then did you visit Japan?
Well, we do our final assembly actually here in Las Vegas.
Okay.
So I get my parts made in different parts of the world. Bands come out of Florida, movements come out of Japan and Switzerland,
Huh.
crystals come out of India. So anyway, we do all of our in-house final assembly here, but I have only ever visited two of my manufacturers. For example, we talk about airplanes, right? In most airplanes, piston airplanes, it's either a Continental engine or a Lycoming engine.
Yep.
You can buy Continental and Lycoming engines from almost any repair shop in the country or the world. There's service centers all over the place. You don't have to visit Continental to see that they're making your engine. Well, the same thing with movements. Movements, you've got some major players in the watch industry, and the movement of a watch is just like the engine of a car.
Mhm.
So it's what makes it go. It's how many hands are on the watch. If it's an hour hand, a minute hand, and a second hand, or just an hour and a minute, it's a different movement.
Hmm.
So the movements I use are Ronda movements, ISA movements, and Miyota movements. But I think I might actually be turning away from Miyota because they, since COVID, have started to
Mm.
decrease some of the manufacturing that they're doing. But these are respected companies that have been making movements for probably centuries combined.
Mhm.
So those factories, no, I have not. If I wanted to visit them, I would just for the interest, but I don't need any proof that they're doing my watches properly. I already know that they are. So
Mhm.
yeah, for all the manufacturers, it was scary wiring my first international wire without ever visiting them. That was definitely a fear point.
Mhm.
And then with the promise that 6 months later, I'm going to get my product. So I had to wait 6 months before I could be like, "Hello, guys, where's my stuff?"
Mhm.
But you do your due diligence. It's just like courting a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you don't give them the keys to your house on the first date. You gotta kinda vet them. You meet their friends, you meet their family, You do the same thing with manufacturers. You
I love it. Making a watch is like dating.
like dating.
Have you ever been burned?
Yes, absolutely, I have, but one of the things that I've learned in manufacturing is, and I've been very upfront about this with any new manufacturer that I take on, is I say, "Okay, the biggest thing I've gotten burned on is packaging." So, watch boxes and some of the things that, we put all the product in, is I'll say, "My first order with you is only gonna be 100 pieces. I wanna see what the quality's like, I wanna see what it's like to work with you guys, I wanna see what the shipping is like." For those that have manufactured, if they ever do manufacture packaging, oftentimes the minimum order is 3,000 pieces or more. So when I go to a manufacturer and I say, well, I'm not going to order 3,000 pieces, I'm going to start with 100. That really weeds out the people that want a long term relationship with me
Uh-huh.
because 100 pieces I'll go through very quickly.
Yep.
And what I want to do is I want to see what it's like to reorder with them, what it's like to get the quality, what it's like to get the shipping done, what's the failure rate and the quality control, because we inspect everything when we receive it.
Mhm.
And I finally, after about 3 manufacturers, found, I think, the packaging manufacturer that I will be using for the remainder of my days at the company,
Mhm. You finally nailed it.
which will be a long time.
Yeah. Wow.
But you kinda learn that kinda stuff because I got stuck with 3,000 boxes that I wasn't shipping out 3,000 in a year.
Yep.
And so that was a good few years supply for me for that run.
Mhm.
And it was a deteriorating
Mm.
relationship. So
So lesson learned.
lesson learned. And now I go in and there's a lot of companies that say, yeah, no, we don't do that. And I say, okay, great. Well, have a great day. We'll talk to somebody else.
Yep. And are your watches it sounds like they're distinctly not smartwatches.
No, we do not make smartwatches.
Yep.
I'll say yet.
Okay.
They are smart, but they're not digital smartwatches. They're not wearables.
Okay. So I like the yet part, just the I wanna talk to you about your, appearance on the Discovery Channel's Flying Wild Alaska in season 3 when you appeared just when Ariel Tweedo was needing some help with her flying lessons. So how did you get into that, and what was it like?
Super fun. I met Ariel at a trade show, and the funny thing is I actually don't have a television. I haven't had one since college, so I didn't know what the show was. And I kind of met her and the rest of the cast at this after hours type event, and I was like, "Oh, well, tell me about your show. What's it all about?" And they had just finished season 2. So they told me about it. I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And I was like, "Well, my favorite airplane is a Caravan on floats, which still to this day is my favorite airplane." And she was like, "What? A Caravan on floats? That's like one of my favorite airplanes. We should be friends." And I'm like, "All right." We ended up exchanging numbers, and since we were both out of living in LA at the time, we ended up hanging out a bit and just getting to know each other, and we became good friends. And then she was getting ready to go back to Alaska to film season 3, and she's like, you're a flight instructor. Would you mind, like, could I hire you for an hour or two just to like get up in the air? I haven't flown in forever and I got to go back up to Alaska and we're going to be filming and I know I'm going to have to get in the planes and I just don't want to suck." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So we just went up and I just had her do some stalls, had her do some steep turns, land the plane a few times. And, just kind of did like an hour of very loose refresher flight training.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Gosh, you're such a good teacher." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." And didn't really think anything of it. Well, what she actually was doing, because a lot of people don't realize Ariel is very smart.
Yeah.
And if you look at the credits of that show, she's one of the executive producers. So she's the one who got that show off the ground. And though her character on the show is kind of dingbatty and kind of silly, she's actually really smart. Well, what she was actually doing was she was vetting me.
Yeah.
She wasn't wanting to brush off the rest or anything. She was
Yeah.
like, could this one come onto the show? And when she left to Alaska, she started pitching me to to come up and help her finish her rating because she did want to finish her rating for the show.
Uh-huh.
And then they started filming, the producers started talking to me, and I didn't realize this was coming at all. It was a complete shock to me. And they said, "Keep it on the down low. We don't want Ariel to know." And so I was like, "All right." So yeah, so I ended up surprising her and
Oh, so she really was surprised.
totally surprised.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a hoot. And what did you fly up there?
A Cessna 172 with glass panels, which is really funny. And out in like Western Alaska, they don't see glass panel 172s with wheel pants. It's not a thing.
Oh my gosh, and that sounds like it was just a lot of fun.
So much fun.
Yeah. I'm remembering also that your college degree had film in it.
I am, yeah, I have a film minor. I mean, when in Southern California, I was growing up in Burbank, so that's studio capital. And like I said, my mother worked for Universal and Disney, so I mean, we were in the entertainment world, and it was just something that I've always grown up with. So getting a degree in it it was just a lot of fun. I kind of knew going into college that I wasn't going to be working in whatever degree I got. So, because I knew I wanted to be a pilot.
Mhm,
So I decided, okay, well, 4 years, I'm paying for school. I'll get something that I really enjoy. I'll
mhm.
get a degree in something I enjoy. So, film and psychology.
Oh, that's perfect, really, right? For what you're doing or for life.
Yeah.
So, let's see. You have this watch company and it's become successful in its own right. A few years ago, you started a foundation with the same root name, your name, and the name of the watch company, Abingdon. Tell us about the foundation.
So, we launched the foundation on the 10-year anniversary of the company. And I love that this foundation was established formally. It's something that I've done always with the proceeds of watch sales is I've offered a scholarship to a young deserving woman who wants to get her foot kind of into the door of the industry that she's interested in. I've basically started with aviation only because that's the industry I know the best. I am a diver. I do race cars. I do some of those things, but I'm not ex-military, and there's some industries that I just don't know as much about. So I was always offering a scholarship to fly somebody out to the Women in Aviation conference, put them up in a hotel, give them the full registration, give them the full experience, hook them up arm in arm, and walk them to different people that they should know based on what they want to do. So we've had winners that have wanted to become aircraft engineers, winners that have wanted to be corporate pilots or airline pilots, or just you name it. They've wanted to somehow get their foot in the door, but they just didn't quite know how or why or what they needed to do or what the industry was really like.
Mhm,
So bringing somebody to one of these industry conferences is a great way to just show them every possibility.
mhm,
And so I was doing that for several years. And it's called the It's About Time Scholarship. And I've always had that. But then with the foundation, we made it bigger and better.
mm,
And the foundation is encouraging the female pursuit of all things STEAM. And we do include arts and STEM. And it's reaching a vast amount of different industries. We have 22 STEAM industries listed on the website. And it's about connecting people through not just networking, through the scholarships, but also through resources, through communication, mentorship, and just encouraging. And it doesn't even need to be for a career, it could just be recreationally.
mhm,
So if you go to Abingdon Foundation's website, then you can search everything from, it's almost set up like a Craigslist for STEAM, where you have things that are being for sale, jobs that are being posted, opportunities where they need volunteers, mentors are listed on there. So it's
mm,
all about, hey, do you want to find out about math scholarships?
mhm,
Well, these are the universities that are offering math scholarships. Or do you want to know how to work on a car and understand how an engine works? Well, this company is doing this and they're giving internships to females to
mm,
make the mechanics. There's all sorts of different things that you can go on and even search for Christmas presents, for birthday presents,
mm,
and find things like Goldie Blocks or find things that are some free resources. I think one of the greatest things that came out of the pandemic and all of us being quarantined is a lot of the museums were offering free tours of their
mm,
museums, or you could drive the rover the Mars rover on your computer and see where it was going on Mars.
Mhm.
And so all of those links are now available on Abingdon Foundation's website.
Mm.
And it's just to encourage us to explore STEAM.
Mhm.
And when those events do come back, we will bring back that scholarship. But right now, with all the events being shut down, we're not able to do that.
Hmm.
But the amount of impact that we are making with this foundation has just been, it just warms my heart to know that we can be a game changer
Hmm.
for these people, for these young girls, young women, and even some that are looking at even a career change or want to explore something new. They're empty nesters and they've always wanted to do whatever, right?
Mhm.
We can give them an avenue where they can explore that safely.
So the avenue being networking and resources to do whatever it is in the STEAM field. And do you see that as being the biggest impact of the foundation?
Absolutely.
What have been some of the challenges?
Well, as a nonprofit, we're still running fairly slim, so we definitely need to hire more people because we're at a point now where we're getting a lot of demand,
Mhm.
but we need the infrastructures to support the needs of the people that are either applying for scholarships, posting or asking questions about what's on the website, and finding information about the foundation. So we definitely need money. So if there's any donors out there listening to this, please donate to abingdonfoundation.org. We had a great Giving Tuesday, and we're always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for people that want to help spread our mission of empowering women.
Mhm. So far, has the foundation been volunteer or has it been paid positions? You volunteer.
We have our board of directors are all volunteer,
Yeah.
and we're all on 3-year terms. We are looking for more board members too. So if anybody is interested in becoming a board member, please do reach out to us. And there's information on the website about that.
Mhm.
And then yeah, so we have basically all volunteers. It's a wonderful group.
Yeah, I bet it is. And I bet that the effects that you're having, the impacts, they seem small, but there's a ripple effect, which with each woman that does something that's out of the box.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you just a couple questions about you and the way you work and sort of get under the hood a little bit. Where do you draw your inspiration and motivation from? You're clearly extremely motivated and inspired internally, but can you put your finger on things that inspire you or where you go physically to draw inspiration from?
Well, there's a few places. And I would say that my biggest inspiration is from the people that I've made an impact on, either by wearing one of my watches, winning one of the scholarships that I've been able to offer, and even some of my staff.
Mm.
Just the impact of the fact that I didn't have to fire anybody. I was hiring everybody this year, more people, everybody got to keep their jobs. My customers, I mean, if you follow us on Instagram, we just got tagged in a post by a man. It's a man and a woman who just had a baby, and they posted a picture of her in hospital holding her newborn with her watch on and what the watch meant to them.
Mm.
And I've had customers who are in the military who can't wear a ring because they fly a certain type of aircraft, and it's a weak point. If you have a ring, you could actually lose a finger in certain situations. So their watch is their wedding ring,
Mm.
and they proposed with an Abingdon watch. My customer that I mentioned that got in the helicopter crash, one of the scholarship winners that she designed for her scholarship entry a set of bands that I'm going to incorporate into the company. And
Mm.
she was from South Africa. When I told her that, she just started crying and hugging me. And these types of things, even reading the reviews that people submit when they own a watch and they talk about what the watch meant to them, it inspires me to get out of bed every morning. There's too many people that have had a positive effect from this, and it almost sounds egotistical the way I'm saying it. I'm not great with words in this. It's not like I have this grandiose idea that I'm like changing lives, but in a very small way, it has changed a lot of people's lives.
Mhm.
And I don't ignore that fact. So what I'm doing, I find not just pleasure in, but it motivates me to do more.
Mhm,
I am inspired by my customers and by the people that I'm surrounded by to do more.
mhm,
And for every 10 things I do, 3 of them succeed, 7 of them fail. That's fine. But those 3 successes will breed 3 more successes, which will breed 3 more successes.
mhm.
And you just you stay disciplined in that mindset and keep setting those goals, and it ends up becoming pretty big.
Hmm. Yeah, clearly. What's been the most useful advice, given to you along this journey?
It's my favorite saying ever. It's act as though it were impossible to fail.
And what advice would you give to your younger self? Little Abington?
I would say don't think so much.
It was that supposed to be like that?
Don't think so much. Just do it. Just do it. I love the interview that the founder of Spanx, whenever she's interviewed, her biggest advice is to build your product and your business for a year secretly before you tell anybody.
Mhm.
And the reason you do that is because if you don't have something fleshed out completely, people are going to poke holes in it. Oh, well, there's this, there's that. Are you sure you want to? And you'll end up getting so demotivated that you will often quit whatever the dream is that you have.
Yeah.
But I love that because the way I did it was I didn't do it that way. I had this idea, I'm going to make a pilot's watch. And I told everybody about it. What do you think? And they're all like, that's not going to go. And, you start to internalize, you start to think about that.
Yeah.
And I just was like, well, if it doesn't go, it doesn't go. And I'm still going to do it. So that was my end decision.
Yep.
But had I not done that and just made it and stopped thinking so much about what other people were trying to influence me
Mhm.
with their opinions, they were all well intentioned, I know.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Right. But everyone's got something to say.
Everybody always has something to say. So I'd say don't think. Don't think. Just do it.
Yeah, and I like just bringing up the fact that the creative process has this embryonic stage that is very vulnerable, and that is okay to actually not be extroverted about the creative process, 'cause and people might not understand that, but there's something about nurturing that little embryo that just it doesn't need to be out in the sun.
Mhm. Exactly.
Abingdon, how do we find out more about the company and the foundation?
So you can definitely follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube. There's a great YouTube channel where I am going out with customers and base jumping and flying airplanes and scuba diving and doing all sorts of really fun things. So definitely follow us there. Just search for Abingdon Co. Abingdon is spelled A as in Alpha, B as in Bravo, I as in India, N as in November, G as in Golf, D as in Delta, O as in Oscar, N as in November, Abingdon. And then you can also check us out on our website, theabingdonco.com. You'll see all of the styles of all the watches and bands and different accessories there. Abingdonfoundation.org is our nonprofit. And then if you're in Las Vegas, we're down in downtown Las Vegas. So just do a quick Google search of us and you'll see what address we're at. We've been moving up to different addresses just to increase our space over the last couple of years. So I don't want to give an address just in case somebody listens to this later on. But if you just do a quick Google search, you can find us and give us a call and set up an appointment. Come on in. We'll give you a private showing and have some fun with our drone course in our warehouse and do some pictures in front of the step and repeat and have a good time.
Love it. Abingdon, thank you so much. To be continued. Thank you for listening to the When Women Fly podcast. My hope is that you leave this conversation with a sense of curiosity and empowerment to hold on to what is important and let go to what weighs you down. Stare fear in the face. If you like this episode of the When Women Fly podcast, be sure to share and subscribe and let us know what you think. We love feedback. Be brave, be bold, and fly. See you next time.